like this one. Mom, why do we have wars? Because we're ruled by an elite group of psychopaths who own the banks, that control the governments and media, and they fund both sides of the war for profit, and they manufacture the consent of the public through the propaganda of the media. If you ever ask your mom that question, that's the right answer. That's not conspiracy theory. Europe has a Federal Reserve Bank, and America, which means it's the main bank that controls all the banks and that controls all the money on a continent. And you know that both those banks are privately owned, and it has never been audited. They're above all accountability. And they can print as much money as they want to, like in America, and they lend it to the American government, who's then indebted to them and must pay back money that was just paper. That's how the world runs, people. You and I get audited and we get taxed, but the really big people with the real, and it's not Bill Gates with big money, that's peanuts compared to people. And they're people we don't know because they remain very private. I'm just talking to you about how the world works. But for us on the ground, when the media talks to us, then Saddam Hussein has been a bad man, or the man in Libya has been a bad man. But the bottom line is very simple. It always comes down to the money. You see, the Americans don't get their oil from the Middle East. They don't get oil from Saudi Arabia. They're not dependent on that oil. Do you know where American oil comes from? Do you know the biggest oil supplier on the planet is? It's not anybody in the Middle East. It's Canada. I know you didn't know that. I didn't know that either until I said Saudi Arabia, but I was talking to the man who just audited the oil companies of the globe. He works for Lloyd's in London. It was a moment in London I had coffee, and he asked me now, who's the world's biggest oil supplier? He said, Canada. I said, you lie. He says, well, I can show you the figures. I just finished the audit yesterday. I said, so what's the thing in the Middle East all about? No, it's about the dollar standard. Every bit of fuel sold all across the world has a few cents go back to America because the fuel trade runs on the dollar standard. That's just how America set it up. So if Saddam Hussein or the guy in Libya wants to move off the dollar standard, then they create a false flag, a pretext, so they can go in and kill the man, so they can maintain the dollar standard. Are you with me? We're talking about rumors of wars. There's a lot of stuff that is pretty common knowledge, but the rumors of those wars are so powerful. The false flag propaganda is so heavy in the world today. And Christ wants Christians to have some understanding, at least some sense of, okay, I'm hearing this, I'm seeing this, but I'm not going to believe this. I need to investigate this. We need to talk about this. We need to pray about this. I believe Christ does not want us to be part of the gullible masses of the world. And so that's what this conversation is all about. So when I speak about context, it's a little bit wider. We're living in turbulent times. And 2 weekends ago, what was one of those moments for me, when the world's attention gets grabbed and arrested, everybody knows about what happened in Paris. I remember when I heard that, I was like out of sync for the whole weekend. I was so upset and I couldn't understand why. I don't know the French. I don't know if I like them. I think their language is pretty sometimes, but that's it. And they've got a tower. And I was on a plane once in the morning and was served breakfast there, and I had a hard time controlling myself in the airplane because I wanted to lick that breakfast. The breakfast was like amazing. It was only French can do breakfast like that in a little thing. And I got my pen out and a pad and I wrote down the wine and the cheese and everything that was in there. And I was determined to come home, and I came home and I went searching for all those ingredients. I was going to make breakfast just like that. And I failed. French can do food, I know that. They can do wine, and you know that too. But that whole thing really grabbed me and it shook me. And I have a sense that there's going to be a lot more things like that in the world. Things that really tug at the heart. And all that Christ wants us to know is that's the design. The design is to tug at your inside and to drag you in a direction and to arrest you, but mostly to distract you and to divert attention to where it's not needed. I believe 9/11 in America happened in preparation for Obama coming into power, And he's done executive orders like no president. If some president has like done 15 executive orders, he's done 115 already. Because after 9/11, the Constitution of America was suspended. So nobody can touch Obama now unless the Constitution was reinstated and we weren't told about it. But as far as the last time I checked, America was still in a state of emergency. So there's a lot of changes happening there now, and I can tell you why. It's because there's a new world order agenda, and America is designed to be one of the first nations to become a global nation, a country without borders. It's a fulfillment of what John Lennon sang back in the 60s. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there are no borders. Imagine there's no law. Imagine there's no country. That was the big vision driving where the world is going to now. So right now you've got people from Syria and the Middle East, and they must get absorbed all across the world. It's all part of a bigger plan. It's not what it seems to be. There's a lot of concern for a lot of people. The climate change agenda. Can we have the next slide? Here's where the climate change agenda is coming from. It's all about the devaluation, moral devaluation. If you're in South Africa today and you're going to False Bay with the spear gun and you kill a great white, there will be consequences. You're not allowed to touch that mother, even if it killed and swallowed your mother. You're not allowed to touch that thing. That thing now has more value, ascribed value, than your mother. And the new moral code that we all are forced to subscribe to globally is something called speciesism. You know what that means? It means beyond racism. It means that we as a species don't have a right to consider ourselves superior to other life forms on this planet. But it goes further than that. We are to understand that other life forms are superior to us, and that everything possible must be done to conserve and preserve those life forms. And that's why it doesn't matter where you are on the planet, if you touch an animal, you're likely to get a harsher sentence than for when you kill a human being. And if that human being is in infancy, nothing happens to you. In fact, you get commended for your courage. Because that's where the other kingdom and the goddess comes in. It says, now we're not going to touch the right of the mother. You can kill as many fetuses. The death of our infants amounts to a genocide like the world has never seen in its history. Millions and millions of humans. In America at the moment, there's this big Planned Parenthood thing going on. But girls, you with feminist leanings, go and Google Mrs. Sangster. She's the one who started Planned Parenthood. She was like a serious Ku Klux Klan racist. She wanted all the black people destroyed. Everybody who's non-white, non-German, non-European, she wants them destroyed. Go and read a book. She's on record for that. She's Hillary Clinton's mentor and hero. And I challenge any feminist to come and argue with me about that. That is a fact. But we're not allowed to say it. It's too embarrassing. And all those Planned Parenthood clinics are set up in areas where white people don't live. It's to cull black babies. You see, according to Al Gore and Bill Clinton, the 7.1 billion people that we have on the planet is making life on the planet unsustainable. And where we're going to right now, if things don't ease up, the big wars are going to be about resources. Food security and water security. That's what the big wars are going to be about if we continue along this road. And the powers that be are wanting to control the supply and demand of food and water. It's the cheapest way of controlling the masses on the planet. And that's what climate change, that's what that conversation is all about. I can tell you that up front. That is not rocket science. The only thing that makes it complex and complicated are the false flags. Because it becomes human rights issue, it becomes right issues. And that's where the kingdoms that Christ was talking about comes in. And that's where I'm coming to tonight. As believers, we need to look through all the smoke and mirrors and identify what king is swinging the scepter here. What worldview is leading the charge against the cause of Christ. And it's very important for us to be able to identify and understand that and make our decisions based on facts, not our emotions. I mean, I think some of us have already concluded And I know I'm not going to make people feel bad now, but because I know there are precious souls amongst us. They're Christians. I don't know if they're mostly ladies. Maybe there are some men. But you've been there. You're at the movie house, and then the ad rolls. And it's so touching that somebody takes out the tissue and begins to cry. Because it's just so touching. Some of us cry for ads. I know you're here. And we forgive you, but afterwards you realize it's a little bit awkward because we're not supposed to cry for it, because if the movie's not real, that is certainly not real. And they're really successful if they get you to cry, but they don't want your tears, they just want your money. But if they have your tears, they're going to have your money. But you can take that to all the world's media, all the mass media. They're so biased, and it's important that we're going to determine what bias drives whoever's writing or making the movie. I was so freaked out, was it last year or earlier this year, when the movie Noah came out. And Christians couldn't figure out that this is not a Christian movie. I don't know. I was following it on social media, and I don't get tempted often to get involved. But you want to tell some people off, like in a non-Christian way, you know what I'm saying? See, the guy producing that thing is Kabbalah, and the entire movie is based on Kabbalism. Some of you don't know what it is, but if you want to know what the Kabbalah is, going to watch that movie again. And just think, this is not Christian. What does Kabbalism espouse? It's right there. But they don't market it like that. They market it as an epic, a biblical epic. It's got nothing to do with the Bible at all. It's here to prepare our minds for a whole new set of values that we must embrace. And that is the war that's going on. The kingdom rising against kingdom. It's a war, firstly, for our affective, our emotional commitment. After that, our loyalty. So today, our biggest challenge when it comes to marriage isn't the toothpaste and the budget and the sex and the communication. It's about how much of a feminist our dear lady friends are. Does that sound harsh? It's true. And feminism has shaped our world in such a way that our guys and ladies, I'm going to challenge you to fight me on this one. Our guys, through our educational system and through the mass media, we have been stripped of our masculinity. Show me one guy that has the courage to pursue a girl nowadays and not feel bad about it. In the same way that young people all around the planet are running around moaning that they have a right to rage because of microaggressions, I mean, it's not like you've become hypersensitive. Our gentleman, if one girl somewhere when he was 11 years old said a bad thing to him, he switched off women for the next 50 years to get over that. Am I onto something here? Ladies, you can say amen. The agenda being driven around us is so deliberate, so powerful, so patient. Bottom line, ladies, is us little guys weren't made to sit still. I wasn't made to sit still when I'm 6 years old for hours and hours and hours concentrating on using a pencil. I was designed to swing around and tumble, and I can learn maths when I do that. Girls can sit down and do small movements and focus. But for us guys, they pump us full of pills. They set us up to be drug addicts. And you girls seem brighter than us at school. It's not like that. It's just that our brains develop through big muscle movement. That's how we grow in intelligence. And we're forced to grow up in a world that has become so feminized that in the same way you've got to feel guilty about being a white adult male all across the world, not just in South Africa, it's all across the world. You're increasingly being made to feel guilty about being male. I remember sitting with my kids when they were little, and Johnny Bravo came on. And I can't tell you how many times I just turned that thing off and wish I could walk up to some woman in Hollywood and just sock her on a jaw for what they were trying to do to my kids. trying to minister shame to them for their masculinity that was natural. It's evil. It's wicked. And then I want to challenge you, you're going to watch a Hollywood movie and see how far mysticism, werewolves and Twilight and all that stuff, that's pure Satanism that's going mainstream. Then we're not going to talk 50 Shades of Grey, and I can go on and on and on. The only problem is, we sit here getting distracted with conversations that have nothing to do with life at all. The conversation that we should have is, which kingdom are we dealing with here as believers? Who's coming at us? And what are they doing, and how are they doing it to achieve what they want to achieve? But all of them are moving toward the same place. And I can't go into further detail because I'm wanting to come to just one or 2 points tonight. The idea is not to shock you or to rattle you. There's one idea. This morning somebody came to me after the service and there was a very bright guy. He says, now, what on earth are you trying to say? What am I supposed to take home with me? Now, I'm going to tell you what I said this morning, and I should have told the guy, maybe you should come again. Maybe you need to listen to everything 3 times. You see, Christ says, kingdom will rise against kingdom. Christ is king of his kingdom. And it's one thing to say I'm a Christian and then mean it in a cultural sense or a political sense or historical sense. But that's not what Christ was asking. He wasn't asking, are you a cultural Christian? He wasn't asking, are you a church member? What he would mean is, are you a follower of me? In other words, are you a disciple? Say disciple. Disciple. That's all he's interested in. Are you a disciple? And the big challenge in the world today with the body of Jesus Christ, and why we can't find the dot or even the map in the mall, is the fact that until we understand that our challenge is not to get a man or a Ferrari or whatever, those goals must be secondary to the one big one of understanding what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. Can somebody say amen? Because as a disciple, firstly, would begin to discern what my kingdom, what Christ's kingdom is all about. What is the Judeo-Christian worldview all about? What does the Judeo-Christian worldview say about gender, about sex, about politics, about culture? What does it say about the environment? Well, we don't know. But you won't know by just sitting around and listening to everybody else. So at this point, I must say that a lot of us are going to have to make a few decisions. We're going to have to let a lot of things go. We're going to have to let the cycling go. We're going to have to let a lot of distractions go. Like I say, people are cycling because they're not wanting to face up to how the world is shaping up. It's just too challenging, too confusing. But as a disciple, this is our challenge. Let's just read this from Proverbs quickly.